So we have done a lot of markets in 2023, and I kind of wanted to talk about our best market of the year and our worst market of the year, which actually happened to take place both in the same exact weekend, back to back. One was on a Saturday and one was on a Sunday. And kind of just talk about one, how much we made from those two markets, and then also kind of reiterate something I said in an earlier video about just how completely up and down markets are and stuff like that, and just kind of talk about that a little bit in today's video. But if you're new here, my name is Nick with the 1994 Candle Co. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. I hope that you find some value in it. But for those of you who are not new, I just wanted to apologize because it's kind of been a weird, it's November 2023 currently. It's been a weird, really, really crazy busy November and start of December. We're about halfway, not quite halfway through December right now. It's December 10th. So yeah, it's been a super busy time. I've had zero time to film videos and stuff. So I do apologize for those of you who regularly watch my content and you have been wondering where the heck I am. Because I posted that I got monetized and then I basically just disappeared. Because yeah, and to be honest, I had kind of slightly disappeared before that. It's been so busy between markets and events, and then just going home to visit family for Thanksgiving, as well as releasing all of my winter collection scents and getting ready for other markets and events, and just all the things all at once. It's been a lot. And not to mention, we also had a Black Friday, Cyber Monday sale. So trying to package all the orders from that and everything, while also, we had just visited family for Thanksgiving and stuff. And so we were a few days behind. We didn't start packaging orders till the following Monday, I think, or whatever, after Thanksgiving. And so it was just a lot. It was a lot all at once. To be honest, I was so exhausted. I was so tired that at my day job, I was literally dozing off at my desk. It was not a good time. I would not recommend it. I would not recommend letting yourself get to that place because yeah, it wasn't a good time. Thankfully, we did kind of slow down this weekend a little bit. I took Friday off, and so I just rested a lot, and then I did very little on Saturday as well. I kind of took both days really, just because it was just too much. It was a lot going on. So, and thankfully now we're kind of towards the tail end, we're getting towards the tail end of Q4 and stuff. So now it's really just online orders and stuff like that we're fulfilling. There's no more events that we're doing or anything like that for the rest of the year. So I can finally breathe a little bit. Which means that I have more time to hop back here onto YouTube and stuff. And so thank you for being patient with me during the crazy busy season. So I just counted them up. We actually did 15 different markets and events this year in 2023, which I had set a goal at the beginning of the year to do at least a minimum of one a month, which we averaged it out because there were definitely some months that we didn't do one just to take a break or, whatever. But then there were other months where we did two, or I don't think we did any that were three, but we definitely did a few months that we had two markets. So it kind of averages out. And honestly, I feel like this year with markets and events has been, like I said before, it's just been really up and down. We've had some really great markets and then some really sucky ones, to be honest. And I kind of knew that that was kind of how this year was gonna go, because this is my first full, well, I don't know. Yeah, last year I guess you could technically kind of count. We definitely did markets and events for a good portion of the year, but I would say this is the first year that we really went pretty deep into markets and events for us. Again, that, just keep in mind that we also have full-time jobs. And so, even just doing one event per month is a lot, because, that takes up, pretty much our only day off. We really only have Saturdays like as a full day off. And so that is when most markets are. And so, yeah, so that just kind of, takes up almost our entire day off. And so it just, we really don't have a lot of Sunday off, because we do work at a church, or I work at a church, I should say. And so my wife generally comes at the same time. It's essentially like she works there as well. But yeah, and so really we only have Saturday off. Fully off from like both of our jobs, or from multiple jobs or whatever. And so it's just a lot to give up that one day off that we get per week or whatever, even just for one time a month or whatever. It's a lot. So anyway, all that being said, I kind of knew that this year was going to be kind of an up and down year with markets, just because we were trying to figure out which ones were going to be worth it and which ones were not. And so now that we've done so many, I feel like we kind of know for next year which ones to apply to and which ones to just go ahead and skip, because they weren't great. And not only that, but I also kind of feel like I know more of how to tell if like another market that we want to apply to or whatever, if it's actually going to be worth it or not. I kind of feel like we have just kind of more of a baseline of what to go off of like how we know if a market's going to be worth it or not, which I'm actually going to talk about in a future video, just some questions and stuff like that you can ask to kind of know if the market is going to be worth it for you and your business or not. Like I said before, up and down, so much so that we literally had our best event possibly ever, depending on how you look at it, but definitely for this year, definitely our best event of this year. I'll talk about that in a minute or whatever. And then our worst event literally the very next day. And so it just is it's so frustrating sometimes being a part of markets and events, because you do all this work to set up, to get prepared, to make all the products beforehand, get everything ready and stuff like that. And then it's just like, you really don't know how it's going to go. Like, you really just don't always know, even if you do all the right things or whatever, you don't always know if, that event is going to be worth it or not until you kind of just do it. And so it's kind of one of those frustrating, hard things about markets and events and stuff like that. So starting with our worst market of the year, we made a total of $113.95 at this market. This was not, today is Sunday. This was last Sunday. Worst market we've ever done by far. Well, I don't know if I would say by far, but definitely our worst market. Because keep in mind, technically made $113.95. But that's not including the cost of the event. That's not including the cost of the candles, which I will just say the cost of the event alone was $100. So just that alone, is not worth it. Even if you don't factor in, even if your cost of goods was somehow zero or whatever, and you made $13.95 that day, that alone, which obviously, we didn't even make that. We lost money, because, if you factor in, the cost of goods for the candles and the time, setting up, tearing down, being there all day. We were there from, I think, 9 a.m. to probably around 5:45. The event itself was from 11 to 5, but obviously you have to count in, set up and tear down and all of that. And yeah. This event, I kind of knew that I knew it wasn't going to be the best. I didn't think it was going to be I knew it wasn't going to be our best event of the year or anything like that. But I had kind of thought that I didn't think it was going to be horrible. I didn't think it was going to be our worst event of the year, obviously, or I wouldn't have even showed up. Even if we had just paid them the $100 and not shown up and not done all the, work or whatever, we probably would have been more fine than actually going there and selling stuff. And, I don't know, we really didn't sell that much. So I don't know. Yeah, either way, it was just not a good event, as you can tell. But yeah, like I said, I didn't expect this event to go super well or anything. Like, I knew it was a newer event. In fact, I think this was actually one of the first times that they had maybe had this event before. They had had other events during the summer and stuff that had gone well and everything. And this event, like, they did send out an email afterwards saying that they had like 1,000 people there, but I really don't think there were that many people there because it was slow all day long. Now, to be fair, we were kind of back in a weird room. So like there was a main room and then there was like 2 other side rooms that they had other booths and stuff like that in. And so maybe possibly there were 1,000 people in the building or whatever, and maybe just a majority of them did not come back to our section or whatever. But it was pretty dead, like pretty much most of the day, to be honest. Like there was a rush of people kind of right at the beginning of the day, which is actually when we got all of our sales. All of our sales literally took place from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Not even 1 p.m. It was like 12:45 was the last sale or somewhere or right around there. But yeah, literally, and then literally the rest of the day, we were just sitting there from like 12 to 5 p.m. Like occasionally people would kind of trickle in and a few people would stop and smell candles, but then, you know, they just, you know, weren't in the mood to buy. This event was kind of odd. They had like, I'm not even kidding, it was like 90% clothing vendors, which if I was a clothing vendor, I would have not been happy if I showed up and like almost every single person was a clothing vendor. That's not the first time that's happened at this area. This was a different like event coordinator or whatever. It wasn't the same people, but we did have another event that also didn't do super well in this same area. And it was once again like all, like I would say 80 to 90% clothing vendors, which again, I would not be thrilled about if I was a clothing vendor. For me as a candle maker, I was great with it because I was like, oh, there's like hardly any other candle makers here. But yeah, I feel like there were a lot of things that went wrong with this event that we're going to talk about at the end. But the next event so technically the best event of the year was on Saturday and then our worst one was on Sunday, which I'm kind of glad that it happened that way because if it had been in reverse, I feel like I would have been more hesitant for the better event that would have came after. And stuff like that. I would have been a little more like, should we even go, and stuff like that. I would have been probably really discouraged because it would have felt like, I was like, cool, well, I guess we just suck and people don't like us or, but honestly, like having such a good event the day before, really, I was kind of like, well, that sucked, but it is what it is. And we packed up, we went home and, it's fine. Real fast, before we get to this next part of the video, it would mean so much to me if you'd give this video a thumbs up if you are finding some value in it so that it can be shown to other people, as well as subscribe to the channel if you haven't already so that we can continue hanging out. So the best event of the year, which was last Saturday, we made $1,766.70. Which I was completely blown away by that. It was such an amazing event. Obviously, I mean, I've never made that much in one day at an event. We have had a couple of 2-day events, or I would say we've had one 2-day event that we made a little over 2,000, and that was last year. But again, that was over 2 days instead of just one. I don't think in the history of my business we've made that much in one day ever. As far as I'm aware, as far as I can remember, I don't think we've ever made that much in just one day, but yeah, so it was such an awesome event. But there are a few differences between these events that I wanted to talk about that I think were kind of the deciding factors of like why they were so wildly different and why, one totally royally sucked. If I'm just being real, just being candid here, it was a horrible event. We won't do it next year for sure. And then the other one that was so amazing, that was like, and to be fair, and you might be thinking, well, the other one's probably been around much longer. That's actually not true. The other one was only its second year. So I mean, it had been around. It was here last year for the very first time. But other than that, so I mean, it had 1 year up on the other one, but I don't really think that made like that huge of a difference, just being, 1 year difference or anything like that. But the biggest differences that I did notice was the first one, the event that went really well, there was actually an admission fee for the customers to come in and shop. Which I've been a part of a few events like this, and I think that every single one has been a really good event. I would have to like go back and look for sure, because I can't remember exactly which ones charged admission and which ones didn't, but from what I can remember, the ones that charge admission to the customers, even if it's only like $5 or something like that, like they charge an admission fee, those ones always seem to be really, really good, because people are there, if they're paying like a $5 admission fee to go to a market, they're there to shop. Like, they're not just there to browse around and kind of see what's there or whatever, and like maybe happen to buy one thing at like one booth in a sea of, booths. Like they're not there to, just walk around and look around and stuff like that. They are there to shop usually. And so I found that the events that usually charge an admission fee, they generally tend to do better in terms of sales and stuff like that. And that was the difference between these two events. The one that was really not good on Sunday, they didn't charge any admission fee. And so there were a lot of people who were there just kind of wandering around. It's kind of like a mall. If you've ever, you go to the mall and like maybe you have like one thing that you're planning to buy, or maybe, you're not even planning to buy anything. Maybe you're just meeting up with a friend and you want to go window shopping or whatever. And that's totally fine. But like when you're, on the business side of it or whatever, it kind of sucks, because you're like, I wish people would buy stuff, and everyone's just here looking around, not really wanting to buy a whole lot or whatever. And so, yeah, so that kind of made a huge difference, I feel like, in that one, because when you're charging admission, like, people aren't going to just go there really to like look around. Like, if they're paying to be there already, they're probably going to want to buy stuff because they're, they've already paid money to get in. So they're like, well, I better get my money's worth. So that was a huge difference. The other big difference that I noticed is that the one that did better also had sponsorships. So they were sponsored by a lot of different bigger companies in and around Omaha. And so because of that, they were able to have a better advertising budget and things like that. And also, obviously, all their sponsors are probably also advertising about them as well. And the other much smaller event, as far as I know, they didn't have any sponsors. So really, they were only advertising, from what I could tell, they were really only advertising on social media and stuff. They weren't really doing anything apart from that. And also, honestly, they were mostly just doing like I think they maybe had an Instagram page or whatever, but it only had like, a couple hundred followers or whatever. And, they had like a Facebook event, but that was really it. There wasn't like tons of things going on or anything like that with either of those pages and stuff. It was just kind of, they were posting about the event, but that was really it. It wasn't really like a really good marketing strategy by any means. But again, there's always a possibility that they were doing more, and I just didn't know about it, didn't see it or whatever. But from what I could tell, they weren't doing, as much as the other event. Also, kind of ironic, I don't know that this really played into, making a huge difference, but the event that went really well was actually put on by another candle maker here in Omaha. She's She is super nice, super kind. I reached out to her beforehand before applying, just to ask her like, hey, is it okay as another candle maker to apply for this event or no? And she was super gracious and super nice, and she was like, yeah, absolutely, we want other candle makers there and everything, which was just super kind and super awesome. There's unfortunately not a lot of people or businesses like that in the world. Even in the small business world, I find more and more that sometimes that's just not really a thing, which is really sad because like there's plenty of room for all of us here, just my opinion. But yeah, and so it was super nice to find another candle maker here in Omaha who was so gracious and allowing us to apply for such an amazing event, our best event of the year. So yeah, that was super awesome. And then the last like big difference between these events too that I noticed as well was just that the sheer like size of the size of like the event itself, like how many booths and how many vendors they had. So the smaller one was only right around 20 to 30 vendors, somewhere in there, which isn't like horrible. Like that's kind of semi-average. I feel like here there's a lot more events that are like 30 to 40, somewhere in there, but it's not like totally, it's not super, super low for events around here. But the really good one that went really well had over 100 vendors. I think there was like 110 vendors or something like that. So that really helped too, because all of those vendors are obviously trying to get the word out about their own business and stuff like that. And so they're also, we're all sharing about the event and spreading the news about, whatever events that we're at and stuff like that as well. And so, having 100 people talking about your event rather than, just 20, obviously, with 100 plus people there, it's going to be, there's going to be a lot more advertising for that. So those were kind of my biggest, like differences that I noticed in, these events and stuff. I don't know for sure. I think that some of those things definitely had, a hand in what made one so great and one not so great and stuff like that. But, obviously there could have been so many other factors in that as well. Just location, especially like one was kind of in a downtown area. One was in a smaller town that's like, I wouldn't say it's in the middle of nowhere, but it is kind of, it's a smaller town. And so, versus like a bigger city, it was, the one that went really well was in the capital of Omaha. So, it's a little bit bigger than, the small town that we were in for the other, event that didn't go so well. But I have heard of plenty of really great events that were super amazing, even in that smaller town. So I think that, that might have played a factor, but I don't think it was the only factor. But I want to hear from you guys. How have events gone for you this year in 2023, now that we are basically, we're almost at the finish line here of 2023. So I kind of want to know, I want to hear from you guys, like how have events been for you guys this year? Have they gone well? Have they been pretty crappy? Have they been a little mixture of both? Like for me, like what's been your experience this year? Let me know in the comments down below so that we can talk about it. And yeah, just kind of, even if you just want to vent about, this year and all it's been financially and all the things, it's been a lot. I get it. So yeah, but just put those down in the comments below so that we can talk about it. But that is going to be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. If you'd like to continue hanging out, there's going to be some other videos that pop up on the screen, and I will see you there.